Alright guys, so before I start writing any code, what I want to do is I kind of want to take a step back and explain exactly how this game project is set up because it's going to save you guys a lot of confusion and a lot of headaches in the future. So first of all, remember, one of the cool things about this framework is you can develop games for other platforms. In other words, we can write code one time and we can eventually deploy it on other platforms like iOS, the web, Android, of course. Now, that's why you see this Android directory in a core directory. Now remember, whenever we were setting up our project, I unchecked iOS and desktop or web or whatever all those other ones were because I'm just focused on making Android games for this tutorial series. However, if I left those checked, then you would see other directories under Android, iOS, desktop, a bunch of other ones. So what's the deal with this? Do we have to, tweak a bunch of code in all of those? Well, no. The code that we're actually going to be writing is in this core. So for the first couple examples, if we hop over to my GDX game and open this, as you can see, this is the code that ran that little demo. This is like a real quick explanation, but this created the that little image, and right here you're setting the background to red. So this is where we're going to be writing all of our code. So now you're saying, alright, well, why would they even put this Android folder in here though? What do we do with that? Whenever you write a game that's going to run on multiple platforms, there's going to be some code that you write that is specific to Android or maybe specific to iOS. Any code that is specific to that platform, you're going to write in that platform's directory. However, we aren't going to really be worrying about that since we're going to keep things really simple. So again, 99% of the time, not only in this tutorial, but even if you decide to develop for other platforms, you're going to work in the core directory. So that is, a quick little explanation. So now what I want to do is actually explain what's in this file. So in this file, again, we have a bunch of crap that's created by default, the image and the background and stuff. However, to make things really simple and just for this first demo, here's what I want to do. I want to go ahead and delete all of these variables, all those objects, and also delete everything inside your methods. So right now, what you're looking at is a blank project. This is a lot easier to explain whenever I'm just, starting out teaching this stuff. So the first thing, of course, we have a bunch of imports. Alright, well, we're going to be learning about all those later whenever we start typing any code. Now the class, there's the name, extends application adapter. So right off the bat, we're seeing that we inherit from this class called application adapter. Probably should know a little bit about that. Well, what this class is it includes a bunch of methods that get called automatically at different points in your game. So we already can see that we have this method called create and render, and there's some other ones too, but I'll talk to you guys about the other methods when we need them. Let's go ahead and figure out what these methods do right now. Well, this is a method that gets automatically called whenever our app is first created. So the user just opens your app, it runs this class, creates it, so any code you put in here is going to be called. So this is really good for just initializing, your variables, setting up all your resources. We're pretty much going to be setting everything up in create. Alright, that was easy enough to understand. What about this render? Render is going to be continuously called whenever our game is running. So you can think of it as the main game loop. This method is going to be called, depending on your device, somewhere like 30 to 80 times every single second. So again, this is a method that gets called repeatedly, so any functionality to kind of render objects on the screen or draw them or anything like that, we're going to stick in here. So again, set everything up, run the game, and again, we don't need to actually go in another file and call these because they get called automatically. Cool thing about this framework. So let's go ahead and just figure out how to print some really simple text on the screen right now. Alright, so I already have all of the packages I need in this demonstration copied. So if you pause the video, you can go ahead and copy all those down, or if you want, you can just wait to the end. And all the source code from these tutorials I'm going to be putting in my forum. So if you just want to hop over there in the Android section, you can just copy it and paste it, whatever. And let me adjust here. So the first object that I'm going to create, and you guys are going to be really familiar with this, is a sprite batch object. Now sprite batch works behind the scenes to make drawing things and displaying things on the screen really quick and efficient, and you guys are going to see exactly how we use that in just a second. And since this is a tutorial for just displaying simple text, the text that we're going to be using is actually bitmap font. This is just pretty much the font, and I'll just name that font. So now in create, remember I told you guys that create is the method where you pretty much set everything up. So for the batch object, we're just going to set this equal to new sprite batch, and it doesn't take any parameters. And for the font object, which is actually the object that we're going to be displaying on the screen, just set this equal to new bitmap font. And right now we didn't add any parameters. This is essentially equal to a blank font object. It doesn't have any text, it doesn't have any colors, anything like that. Now by default, the parameters on your font I believe are 15 pixel and Arial. Now on pretty much any device nowadays, like especially the newer phones with super high resolution, 15 pixels is really small. I mean, if it's like 1080, then what's 15 pixels? It's like a little dot on the screen. So I'll show you guys how to kind of scale your font up in just a bit. But now that we have the object, the first thing I actually want to do is change the color of it, just to keep things interesting. So it's called set color, and if we just go color, pick your favorite color. So now we have blue font, and for the size of it, we can actually call scale, and we can just grow it by 5 times. So let me give myself a little bit more space. So now we're working with big blue font, pretty sweet, and we just have the parameters set, but we didn't actually display it on the screen yet. Now before I do that, I actually want to include this method, Dispose. Now get rid of all this. Now as you can see, it's an override method, and this is another method that gets called automatically, and it's from, of course, application adapter. So this one gets called whenever we first start the app. This one gets called over and over pretty much as our game is running. Now Dispose, it gets called at the end of your life cycle. So when this class, when pretty much your device is done using everything in this class, and the reason that we want to call this is because this is where we get rid of all our resources, free them up, in other words, dispose of them. And if you guys are like, this is the boring stuff, memory management, I'll skip over this, do not, because if you don't dispose of your resources and don't free them up, you're going to have really bad memory leaks on your phone, and stuff is going to start to happen real slow, and it's going to suck. Probably going to need to restart your phone, and cars are going to start crashing in, and meteors are going to start raining down from the sky. Do not skip over this method, it's very important. So the first thing is batch. I'm going to dispose of that, and also font, dispose of that. So now that we got all the memory management, freed up our resources when we don't need them, because hey, we're not greedy. Now in the render is where we actually display it on the screen. So I don't know, that's kind of what the whole purpose of it is. Now before we display anything on the screen, you're always going to have 2 lines of code in here, and this is kind of weird, but this is just how you do it. We pretty much need to wipe the screen, clear everything out, so we're working with a blank canvas. Now if you call gdx.gl.gl clear color, what this is first is you need to give it a color to clear with. So just think of this as you're making a paintbrush and you're going to paint your entire canvas a certain color before you start adding game elements to it. Now the parameters that it takes are RGBA, which mean the first 3 are your red, green, and blue, and your last one is your alpha, your transparency. Now if I just go 1, 1, 1, 1, that means bump up every value. In other words, it's white. Now the reason that the last example was red is because they went 1, 0, 0, which pretty much means all red and nothing else. So if you, I don't know, if you just are following along this tutorial and you want to print it out as red, do that. But 111 says we now have a white paintbrush. So now what we want to do is we want to call gdx.gl clear, and in here we want to call gl. This is kind of weird looking, but these are just the built-in parameters that they gave us. And gl20 gl color buffer bit. So again, all this says is we want to clear the screen with this color. In other words, we want to clear it with a white paintbrush. So if you just ran this right now, we would have a blank white screen. However, we don't want that. We actually want to draw the font on the screen. So in order to draw, what you first need to do is you first need to begin your batch object, because remember I said that this essentially speeds the drawing process up. So we want to say batch.begin, and inside begin, and from the time it ends, so make these two, that's where you want to do all of your drawing at. Now the only thing that we have to display on the screen in this tutorial is the font. So we're going to take that font and we're going to draw. Now whenever we draw it, we actually need to pass batch in, and remember up here we just set a bunch of parameters. Pretty much we're choosing our font just like you would in like Microsoft Word or something. We didn't give it any text yet. In other words, we didn't say what text we want to appear on the screen. So I'm just going to type like hello. I hate hello world. I think it's stupid. So I'll say hello baby. Don't say maybe. Exclamation mark. And so now we have text set up, ready to go, but we have to add two more values, and that's where do we want it to appear on the screen. Now of course these are just the X and Y values, 100, 400. And another thing I want to point out is whenever you're working with coordinates in this framework, 0, 0 is the bottom left. I know in a lot of other programming languages and a lot of other frameworks it's the top left, but remember in this it's the bottom left. So this X and Y coordinates, it's going to appear somewhere in the bottom left. So now let me show you guys one cool last thing. Now whenever I'm making a game, this emulator, of course, as you guys know, I don't have to say this, it's incredibly slow and annoying to work with as well. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to click this Android, and if I click this button right here, this is the screen recorder for my phone. So I have a phone that's actually plugged in my computer, a device. It's actually the phone that I carry around and use every day. Now I'm going to hit start recording, and whenever I do that, it's going to start recording the screen on my phone. Pretty stinking awesome. So kick off the program, make sure that it's running in your phone, and build this baby, build it up. What? Yes, I want to run on my phone, and I'll wait to verify that it is running. I'm looking at my phone right now. Alright, so I'm looking at my phone, it just popped up. Now do I want to record my phone? Yes I do. So now it should be recording, and again like I said, I'll just take this and I'll pop it into my videos. But as you can see, 100 over, 400 up. Again, the coordinates are in the bottom left, and yeah, it's looking good so far. So let me just stop that recording. And by the way, this is just how you save everything. So yep, that looks good. And I'll just hit OK. So anyways, that is how you make simple text that appears on your phone. And again, right now we just have some text, boring, but eventually we're going to be drawing some cool stuff like enemies, main characters. It's going to be sweet. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Alrighty hosses, welcome back, and in this video it's actually going to be real quick because all I'm going to do is show you guys how to add a simple image to your screen. Now before we get started, I want to mention this. In the last tutorial, actually the last two tutorials, I kind of talked to you guys about the basic structure for a project, how your directories are set up, and I also explained a couple simple things like what all these methods do and batch and how to clear your screen. Well, a lot of this functionality you use in almost every game that you make. For example, you're always going to have this create method, you're always going to have a render method, you're always going to clear the screen and draw stuff on it. So instead of writing it in every single video, what I did is I wrote the basic shell for everything one time. For example, all of these methods, and also the batch, which is used for drawing stuff and wiping the screen, of course. And I took all this code and I pasted it in my forum. So if you just go in the forum, whenever you're trying to use these demos, you can just take this, paste it in, and this is going to be my starting point from now on. So anyways, now I can move on to the specific good stuff. It'll speed up our learning process a little bit more. So before we add an image to the screen, we actually need an image in the project, and the location that you add that is actually in Android. You add it in your assets folder. So remember I said that like 99% of the time we're going to stay out of this folder. Well, this is the 1% exception. So I'm just going to go to, actually let me just do this. Alright, so wherever your project is, again mine is named Bucky Blaster. If you go to Android and then assets, again we already have one by default. That was the first demo one, and I have this image of, I don't know, it's just something I was posting on the new Boston. I made pizza last night, so I posted it on my stream so everyone could see, and yeah, so now it's added. And if you hop over back, I'll show you guys. So assets, so there's the pizza. It was delicious. I really want pizza now. Should I pause the video and make a pizza? No, I'm not that fat. But alright. All I can think about is pizza now. Oh, so cheesy. Alright. So the first thing I want to do in the code is just initialize two variables. So what's going to happen is we're going to add the image to our project using one variable, and then we need to convert it to a sprite. Now a sprite is a special type of image pretty much that your game can use. It's used for collision detection, moving around, pretty much a game image. So first, private texture. So this is just going to be the raw image, and I'll just store that in image. And whenever we convert it to a sprite, of course we need to store that in a sprite object, and I might as well just name it sprite. So now in create, this is how we do all this, and it's actually really easy. For the image, we're just going to set this equal to new texture, and the only parameter that this takes is the name of this image is a string. So that's pizza.ping. Alright, so now our image is initialized. In other words, this is just a raw image. We can't add it to the game. We can't use it at all. This is just image data, a bunch of pixels. Means nothing to game development. So let's go ahead and initialize our sprite object from the sprite class. Now the one parameter that we're going to pass in here is the image itself. So what this is going to do is it's going to take this graphic of the pizza and initialize it as a sprite object. In other words, convert it to a sprite, so now we can use this object to do cool things like, hold on. My house is like really dry for some reason because, well, I know why, because it's winter and I couldn't open my windows for like the last 6 months, so I got the same crappy air, and yeah, so I have like breathing problems or something. But anyways, that's what's going on so far. And remember, before you worry about using it at all, you need to remember to dispose of it when you're done with it, unless we want tons of memory leaks. So now, again, later on I'm going to show you guys like cool things like animation and moving around and collision detection and bumping sprites into each other. But for right now, we will just take this and draw it on the screen. Now remember, to draw it, you pass in batch. And now, let me go ahead and kick this off. Dun, 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 Alright, so kick that off, and now with Android, start recording my phone. And alright, so let me take my phone. I'm actually holding it in my hands. Look at that, a nice, beautiful piece of pizza. Alright, so there you have it. Again, Pretty simple stuff, pretty basic, how to take an image, convert it to a sprite, draw it on your phone. Now that we are a little bit more comfortable with game development, we're going to start getting into the good stuff. So in the next video, I'm actually going to be showing you guys something useful, and that is animations. Because you're going to want to animate in almost every game that you make. Not often are you going to want to display pictures of the pizza that I ate. So yeah, in the next tutorial is where things get good. I'll see you then. Alright guys, welcome back, and in this video, as promised, I'm going to be showing you guys how to create basic animations. So before we begin, just want to mention that I already imported everything that I needed to. So if you want to pause the video and copy this, feel free, or go to my forum and just copy it, whatever. But now that that's taken care of, check this out. Now you guys already know what an animation is. It's essentially just a series of images, and when you play them right after each other, it looks like movement. So you see how these images are actually slightly different from another? If we were to take these and play them right after each other real quick, it's going to look like this guy's gun is backfiring. You see the bullets like small, then it gets bigger, and then even bigger, then this like charged thing is coming from his gun. Since these images are slightly different, played after another real quick, it looks like movement. Alright, nothing new there. So now we have to figure out how to take these images and turn them into an animation. So you're probably thinking, alright, gonna go in here and what can we do? We could probably make a loop, and then with each iteration we can just draw the next image. Well, that is a good idea, and that's what a lot of people do whenever they develop games. However, Libgdx comes with a bunch of built-in tools to make animation really simple. Now, in order to use these tools, you first need to create an animation atlas. What the heck is that? Well, anytime you have a bunch of similar images, for example, images used in an animation, or if you're making like a 2D game like Pokemon, or you remember like the old Warcrafts, like Warcraft 1, where you just have a 2D game and a 2D map. Anytime you have a group of images that are related in some way, what you do is you group them together in an image or a texture atlas. And this is just a way to tell Libgdx in your framework these images are related. So you can just like do something like make a loop. However, whenever you group them with an image atlas, it not only makes animations really easy, but it helps out with performance a lot. Cool, sounds pretty awesome. So how to create this image atlas thing? I know we're probably gonna like go to Photoshop and start dragging all this crap together, and then we need to do something stupid. It's gonna be annoying. Well, check this out. There's actually a tool online, and this is what everyone uses when they're working with Libgdx atlases. So go to this URL, and once you're there, click this texture packer. It's the very first one, GDX-texture packer, and just download this. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you a zip file. And is it done yet? Alright, there we go. So I'm going to double click this and extract it. And it is extracting. Sweet. Alright, so double click the file, and inside here you're going to have a jar file. Now this is essentially just a Java program, and let me clean all this up. Alright, so what this program is a really simple and easy way to take a list of images, and it makes the atlas for you. So pretty awesome. So how you use it is you just click new pack, and what do you want the name of your pack to be? Just name it shooter, and this is just pretty much a group of images. It doesn't really matter what you name it. Now the input directory is, it's asking, alright, you want me to group together a bunch of images, what folder are they in? So mine are in TNB Extra, Shooter Dude, and again this is just the directory it's looking at. This is the Shooter Dude directory. So that's what I'm giving it whenever I hit open. Now for the output directory, it's going to say, okay, I'm going to make this atlas for you. Where you want me to stick it when I'm done with it? And the output directory is just in your Android project. if you go to Android and then you go to assets, just highlight assets and hit open, and it'll select that for you. Now the last thing you need is a file name, and I'm just going to name mine shooter. Looking good. Now if you hit pack them all, packing everything together, done. How quick was that? How stinking easy was that? So you're going to hit close, and ladies and gentlemen, you now have a group of images or an image atlas in your program. And if you want to scroll and check them out, you can actually look what the atlas looks like. Again, it's just a bunch of information, and this pretty much is just, you actually don't even need to worry about this because well, that's like the point of the tool, to take care of all the behind the scenes stuff. But it's a file that has a bunch of information about a group of images. So, you know, if you ever really felt like looking at it, you can. But the cool thing, like I said, really don't need to worry about that. That was what the tool is for. Alright, now in your code, let me go ahead and show you guys how easy this is. So we're going to declare 3 variables. The first one needs to be a reference to the texture atlas, and you guys already know what that is. Just talked about it. Now the next thing is going to store the animation data, essentially saying what images do we want to use for the frames and how long they're going to last for. Do you want your image to appear slow, fast, whatever, all that good stuff. And I'm just going to name mine animation. And the last thing we need is a variable called time passed. Now how your animation is going to work is this. We need to throw in the time passed so the animation knows where it is in the sequence. Now we don't even need to get or make any calculations to figure out how much time passed. It's all built in for you, and I know that this is kind of weird, but it's just how animations work in Libgdx. So I'll show you guys how easy this is if it sounds confusing right now. But anyways, those are the 3 objects that we need. So now in Create, let's go ahead and initialize first shooter atlas. And remember, this was just equal to your atlas itself. So you set this equal to a new texture atlas, and then for GDX, you pretty much say where the file is. Where's the atlas that you just created? So in files, internal, you just give the string, and ours is called shooter.atlas. Alright, looking good. So again, this is just saying in my files, look for a file called shooter.atlas, and that is the treasure that you're looking for. Simple enough. So now that we have a reference to the atlas, what we need to do is we need to start making the animation. So set this equal to new animation, and the first parameter it takes is how long do you want to play these frames for. Now we have 6 different images as our frames, so we can have one of those images last an entire second. Most of the time you have about 30 frames a second. In other words, 30 different images every single second. So what you do for that is you would put 1 over 30 F, and I'll talk to you guys in just a second what's going on. But for the next one, the other part of your animation is what images do you want me to play. So again, that's all an animation is, a list of images playing for a certain duration, one after another. Now our list of images, how convenient, they're actually in shooter atlas, and if you hit get regions, what it's going to do is it's going to get all of the locations for you. And again, remember when I showed you guys that atlas file, there are other pieces of information in there like coordinates and stuff like that. We don't need to worry about that because this is going to pick out everything for you exactly where it needs to be and return a list of images. So these are the images, and this is the duration that they play for. Now here's the thing, with 30 frames a second right now, that's pretty good whenever you're making games. However, remember, I'm on a screen recorder making YouTube tutorials, and also I'm going to be recording my phone, which is a weird, I actually don't even know what bitrate or frame rate that's going to appear at. So I'm going to play my animation really slow, like maybe 1 out of 10. In 10 images, or in other words, your image is going to change 10 times every second. It sounds fast, but if you're looking at it in real life, it might look kind of choppy. And if this is actually displaying too fast on YouTube for all my like screen recorder crap, I'll have to slow it down even more. Actually, let me just go ahead and play like 3 images a second. And if that looks bad, then I'm just buying a new screen recorder. Anyways, now that we got everything set up, what I want to do is I'm going to go to Shooter Atlas in Dispose, because once we're done with it, we can free up the memory. Looking good. And let me clear the screen white right now. Good enough. Alright. Do I want to change the color? Let me just change it. Actually, let me change it to like green. So for that, I just want to show you guys that you can indeed have something other than white. So the red is 0, green is 1, which is essentially 100%, and blue is 0 2. Alright. So in between here, remember, the first thing that we need to get is the time that passed since our animation began. So that way, whenever this is playing the animation behind the scenes, it knows exactly where it is in the sequence. It knows what image to use. So for the time passed, all we do is this. You would think, alright, have to get some variable, subtract it from another variable, and then we might need to convert it to like a time for Java. That's a pain in the butt. All you do is this. GDX, graphics, get delta time, boom, roasted. And by the way, working with time on computers in general is a pain in the butt. So thank you, whoever made these methods, because save me a bunch of time. How ironic. Alright, so the last thing we have to do is actually draw this or display on the screen. So batch, draw. What are you trying to draw? Well, we're trying to draw the animation. Now remember, each time we draw, we just want to get one image, one keyframe. And what we do is we pass in time passed and true. Now true is going to tell your animation to loop. So without this, it wouldn't play one after another. So this is just going to continuously loop until we close out of the app. Now the other two parameters, of course, are just the coordinates. I'll put like, let's put it, I don't know, like 300, 500. Good enough. So yeah, I think that's it. So let's go ahead and see if this works. Alright, so there's my little green dude shooting his gun. Well, he's not green, but the background is green. And yeah, hopefully you guys can see that. And it will probably display better on a white background, but you guys get the idea, and I'm kind of digging this green background. It reminds me of the Ninja Turtles. But anyways, there you go. That is the basics of how to create an animation in Libgdx. Hope you guys loved it. I'll see you next time. Alright guys, so before we go any further, we need to figure out how to handle input from the user, how to respond to touch events, stuff like that. It's going to be awesome. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to implement the interface input processor. So implement input processor. Now since we implemented it, what I'm going to do is right after render, give yourself a couple lines, and if you hold down Control and I, it's going to give you all the methods that you need to implement. Just going to write them in there for you. So all of these methods get called automatically whenever the user does something. Now a lot of these, like key down, key up, key typed, these are just specific to desktop and like web development. What we are worried about is this, and this is another one, mouse moved. Of course, you don't have a mouse on an Android touchscreen device, so I'm going to go ahead and copy these ones. These are all your touch events, and just cut those, and I just want to move them to the top real quick. And that way we have all the methods that we're actually going to use clumped together. And all these ones, scrolled, mouse moved. Again, like you guys already know, Libgdx can be used for cross-platform game development, but we are only focused on Android, not like desktop or anything. So let's figure out what methods we're using. This one, touchdown, you guys can probably already guess, but touchdown is when the user taps their finger or touches the screen. Touch up gets called anytime the user releases the finger or lifts it up off the screen. And touch drag, as the user is dragging their finger across the screen, this is going to be called repeatedly. So every single pixel that it moves, for example, if you just moved it an inch, it's going to call this method like 100 times. So that's what those do. And another thing, I don't even know if I told you guys this, but I already imported all of the stuff we're going to use for this demo. This demo, we're just going to have some text in the middle of the screen, and whenever they tap down, it's just going to display the coordinates. I don't know if I told you guys that already. If I did, well, now you know it again. So under sprite batch, we need to declare a couple things. Do I want to comment this? Nah, I'll just leave it as B. So bitmap font, we'll just call that the font. That's the text that's going to display in the middle of the screen. Now another thing that I want to show you guys how to do is this. I'm going to make two variables for screen width and screen height, and what I want to do is I want to center this text right in the middle of the screen. So in order to calculate exactly where we need to position it, we're first going to get the screen width and screen height, and you can actually put the text anywhere for this demo, but I figure I might as well show you guys now since it's a technique that you're going to use a lot. And the last thing is just private string the message itself, and what do we want to appear by default? When the user first opens the app, it will just say like touch me, and of course after they touch down somewhere on the screen it's going to display the coordinates, but the very first thing they'll see is touch me. Good enough. Alright, so might as well go ahead and handle these screen widths and height right now. So for the screen width, is actually really easy. If you just call GDX graphics.get width, it's going to return the width in pixels of whatever device this app is running on. So we need to do the same thing for height, graphics, and get height. Awesome. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is just set up the font. Remember, the font is pretty much just styling. What color do you want it? What size? All that good stuff. And by the way, whenever I'm just showing you guys this example, the font's going to look really choppy, and that's because I'm just going to show you guys a real quick way to scale it up. It's the same one we used in the last tutorial. However, whenever you're making games, there's a better way to make font. This is just kind of the quick and dirty way that we can use for, I don't know, just quick demos. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to like have custom fonts and all the different properties, but for right now we can just use bitmap font, and after that I want to call a method to set its color, and let me set it to like green. I don't think we used that one before. Clear. That'll show up well. Alright, font color green, and to grow it I'm just going to scale it by 5 times. Now again, what this does, if you have 12 pixel font, it doesn't turn it into 60 pixel font. It just takes 12 pixel font and stretches it. So it's going to look all pixelated, but whatever, we don't care. We're just worried about handling touch events in this tutorial. Now the last thing I want to do is this. Actually, let me delete this because I kind of need to explain it. Now whenever you handle touch events, what you can do is you can handle it in this class, stick all your methods here. You can make an entirely different class specific and made just for handling touch events. In other words, you can handle it in a bunch of different locations in a bunch of different ways. What our program needs to know is, okay, whenever I'm handling text, or excuse me, handling user input, where are those methods that you want me to look for? And we just stuck those in this class, the same exact class, so we just need to tell it that. So input set input processor this, and again this is essentially saying that whenever you are looking to handle user input, taps, touches, drags, look in this class for the methods, and there they are right there. Now one other thing that I want to do is this. I want to actually dispose of the font because that's a resource that we need to free up. And if you guys are like, alright, how do I know what objects I'm supposed to free up and what I can just leave and not worry about? If you go in the Libgdx documentation, they have a class, I believe it's called Disposable. And yep, right here, Disposable. And if you click this, it's going to give you all the objects that you need to free up. So again, any method that any object that you can actually call dispose on, you probably should dispose. So that's just going to save yourself from memory leaks. Now the next thing I want to do in render is this. Now remember, what we want to do is we want to put the message or that text right in the middle of the screen. So you guys are like, alright, we'll just get the width and the height. We already got those. We'll just divide them by 2 to get the center point of the screen, and we'll just plop our message right there. Well, that is going to give you the exact center of the screen. However, whenever you place your message there, remember, the message's origin is in the bottom left corner. So it's not going to place the center of the message on the center point of the screen. It's going to place the bottom left of the message on that middle, so it's going to look something like this. So if this blue area was the message, in the middle was the middle of the screen, then it's going to place it somewhere right there. So essentially what we need to do is we need to account for the message size. So if we go to bitmap font and we call text bounds, and we can actually just name this variable like text size or something like that, then what we can do is we can just use the font to get bounds. Now of course we need to pass in what one we're using, and it's just going to be that message. And again, this is just equal to the string touch me right now, but this is going to change. But what it's going to do is it's going to look at this object and pretty much get the size of it. So then we can use that to pretty much account for that and position it correctly. You guys are going to see in like half a second. So I'll just store it in the X and Y. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the width of the screen over 2. And again, that's going to give you the center of the screen. But then we need to subtract the text size width over 2. And we do the same thing for the Y position. So what do I say, SOT? What the heck does that mean? Alright, so the height over 2. And we actually want to add, because remember, the coordinate system is a little bit flipped whenever you're working with just libgdx. Text size height over 2, looking good. So now all we have to do is actually draw this on the screen. So I can clean this up a little bit. Alright, now remember, anytime we want to draw, we can just use font, draw, pass in our batch so it speeds it up. What do you want to draw? How about that message? Where do you want to draw it? How about the X and Y coordinates, which will place it right in the center of the screen. Now if you run this program right now, it's just going to display touch me, and that's it. You can tap down and nothing's going to happen. It's going to keep that static text. Now of course the point of this tutorial is to handle these touch events. So the first thing we want to do is we want to return these 3 to true. We say return them to true, change them to true. And that means, hey, these events were handled. So let's go ahead and just use this first one first, touch down. Now all I'm going to do is I want to change the message or the text on the screen, and it'll just put a little indicator of where that event occurred. So touched, or I'll say touchdown at screen X. Make sure I got my commas in the right place. Screen Y. So it's pretty much just going to display the coordinates, easy enough. And actually what I can do is just copy these because they're going to be pretty similar. Alright, so this is for the touch up, and this is for, actually let me go ahead and show you guys something. Alright, now the reason that I don't want to call this touch drag method is this. whenever you touch down for the very first time, you don't just hold your finger on the exact same pixel. And no matter how hard you try, your finger is going to move at least a little bit. So in order for us to clearly see this touchdown being called before touch drag gets called, I'm just going to run this little demo right here. And let me actually set up my... For some reason, I need to be holding my phone in a specific kind of way, or else the screen recorder kind of messes up. Alright, so there we have it. It says touch me, and I'm just going to tap in the top right corner, touch down, and now I am releasing my finger, touch up. Now let me do it like in the bottom left. Touch down, and you can actually drag it and then release it, and boom, look at that. Now let me go ahead and stop my recording. So now let me show you guys why I didn't want to run this touch drag method. And let's say dragging it, that. Alright. So now we have some functionality in touch drag. Now let me go ahead and run this as well. Alright, now check this out. I'm just going to tap down, and I'm not moving my finger at all, or at least it seems to me that I'm not moving it at all, and I released it. So pretty much, as soon as you tap down, even if you try to hold it still, your finger is going to be moving a little bit, and it's going to kick off that touch drag method. Alright, so as I was saying, that's why I just didn't want to call all of these at once, and that's another thing that you have to be careful for if you don't really want to call the touch drag method, or if it's not being called when you expect it to. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Again, all of this code is going to be on my forum, and well, I'll see you later. Alright guys, so in this tutorial, what I want to do is I want to start talking to you about the camera, and I'm not talking about the camera on their device that they use to take pictures and post on Instagram. I'm talking about your game camera. Now, if you ever make a game and the entire map is bigger than the user's view, then you need to use a camera. What am I talking about? Well, when you played Pokemon, then the entire Pokemon world was huge. Well, you just didn't have the entire world on that little Game Boy screen. You only looked at a part of that world at a time. Same thing whenever you play like Super Mario Brothers. Mario could run left and right, but the entire map wasn't on the TV screen at one time. So in this example, here's what I did. I created an image, and this image is actually really huge. It's like, I think it's like 5,000 by 5,000 pixels. Obviously, whenever you're making games like this, you don't want the entire view or the entire map on the device at a time. You only want a little portion of it like this. And then of course the user can like scroll around, zoom in, zoom out, boom, good to go. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and I already added it to my project actually, but if you go online just for this demo, find the biggest image that you can. Make sure that it's at least like 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. That'll probably work the best. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. And again, if you're like, I want to make a game, but I know it's not going to like be a RPG where the user is going to be moving left and right, you want to use the camera in a lot of different instances as well. So pay attention to this tutorial because it's going to teach you guys a bunch of awesome stuff. So what I'm actually going to do is, in order to add the functionality or the user input that we need, we're going to implement a class or interface called gesture listener. Now, gesture listener is just like input listener, except we can listen for gestures, and I'll show you guys those gestures right now. So just hold down Control I, and of course things like flings, pinches, all these things you can't do on a desktop. These are pretty much just events that the user can do that are specific to touch devices, and I am only worried about this one for this tutorial, this pan. So I'm going to cut it and stick it up right under my render. So again, a pan is essentially just panning around. So that's what I'm doing right here. So that's why we're going to be using that one. Thought it was pretty appropriate. Alright, so now let's go ahead and set this project up. By the way, I don't even know if I think I mentioned this, but I already imported that image. Pretty sure I said that already. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to get a reference to our camera. Now I probably should mention this. There are two different types of cameras that you can use. Orthographic is best for 2D, and that's what we're making. So if you're making a game like Pokemon, Super Mario, any like 2D style game that you kind of think of, the most simple ones, most of the time you're going to be using that. There's also a perspective camera, and this is a little bit weird. We're not going to be using it that much. Perspective, like if you're standing in the middle of a long highway, it kind of looks like it's getting smaller as it gets toward the horizon. It kind of gives you that effect, but it's kind of weird whenever we're just making games like this. So again, orthographic, I know it has a weird name, but just think of this like a normal camera. So the next thing I want to do is this. Private texture. Now remember, whenever we use images in our games, they're just textures at first, and then we convert them to sprites. Pretty much a texture is just the raw image data, and a sprite is just something that we can like move around and do cool stuff with. So simple stuff, and I'm just going to name that map sprite because it's our only one. Now in Create, we can actually set everything up. Now for the camera, I'm going to set this up first. What we do is we say, alright, I'm a camera, you want me to only show a certain area, how big do you want the area to be? For example, do you want it to be, I don't know, maybe, what is this, like 100 pixels by 300 pixels? Do you want me to show 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels? We pretty much give it the viewing area whenever we're setting it up. So we're just going to initialize this to new orthographic camera, and what I want to do for the viewing area, I'm just going to get the width and the height of whatever device I'm on. So for GDX, graphics, get width, and the same thing, GDX, graphics, get height. So now the viewing area of the camera is specific to whatever device that the user is using. Pretty cool way of setting it up. Now for the texture, just going to initialize this to new texture, GDX files, internal, and mine is called, actually don't even know what it's called, worldmap.ping. Alright, so now we just have to convert to a sprite. New sprite using this texture. So we now have a map that we can actually move around. Now what I want to do is, now that we have an object, in other words the map itself, I want to position it, and at first I'm just going to position it in the middle of the screen. Now remember, the origin of this is actually the bottom left corner. So if we were to take this and position it at 0, 0, then it would display, only a quarter of it would display. So what we want to do is we want to account for that little issue. So whenever we take the sprite and we set the position, what we need to do is sprite get width over 2, and the same thing for height. So minus sprite get height over 2. Now again, all this is going to do, it's just going to take the middle of the screen and it's going to move it down and to the left by half the length and half the width. In other words, it's just going to center on the screen whenever you first open your app. Simple enough. Now the last thing we need to do, of course, just like input listener, we need to say that gesture listener, whenever a gesture occurs, to look in this class to handle those events. So GDX input, set input processor to new gesture detector this. And let me tighten this up, clean it up. Actually, I might as well just bump all those together. Looks a little bit neater that way. Alright, looking good, looking good. Now, before we go on, we just need to take that texture. This is an object that you actually need to dispose of. Alright, so now that we have all of our objects set up, let's go ahead and render and actually draw this on the screen. Now here's one little nuisance that I'm going to tell you guys. Now whenever you just use your batch to draw objects on the screen, by default it's just going to try to take all of the drawable and just plop them in the screen, fit them in there however it can by default. However, we are using a camera, and whenever we use this camera, essentially what we're saying is don't just draw everything on the screen like this. You only want to draw a portion of these objects at a time. Let me scroll out a little bit if I can. So don't just draw like normal. Use this camera to determine exactly what area we actually want to display to the user. And it actually takes one extra line of code to set that, and that's batch set projection matrix to camera dot combined. So that's all that line of code does. And now inside batch is where we do our drawing. Sprite, which is actually the map itself. Draw using batch to speed it up. Now if we just drew this on the screen right now, it would appear, and then we could swipe our finger and nothing would happen because we didn't handle any user input or touch events right now. So in pan, what I want to do is this. Whenever the user is panning around, what these parameters delta x and delta y mean are essentially get the starting position and then get the ending position and give me the difference. So delta essentially just means the difference. So we can use this to move the image depending on how far they move their finger. So camera, translate, and I already include those, delta x and delta y. Now what we need to do is we actually need to put negative delta x because stupid Libgdx and OpenGL, everything is flip-flopped around and it's just one of those weird things. Now what this is going to do is it's going to move the camera, but we also need to call this method as well, camera.update. And I know that you think by, I don't know, just in real life you move the camera and it's always looking at a new thing. You don't have to do anything else because, I don't know, that's just normal. But with game development you actually need to update the view after you move it, and that actually just changes the view. So now let me go ahead and get my phone ready. Alright, so check this out. Our map is now centered by default. I'm just going to put my finger on there, start dragging around. Looking sweet. This little world is looking cool. Alright, not bad, not bad. Now we have a couple problems here. Look what happens when I scroll really far to the right. Of course, we don't want this. We don't want to allow the user to take the entire map and move it off the screen. So we have that problem to fix eventually. But other than that, I mean, this is looking good. Alrighty guys, welcome back to another video, and in this tutorial what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to work with sound in Libgdx. Now what I already did is in my assets folder I added a new directory called sounds, and all of these are just sound effects that I bought off the internet because I didn't want to get sued, so I actually had to buy them. But if you guys know of any way that you can get sound files for free on the internet, I don't know if there's a way to do that or not, but if there is, then feel free to grab anyone off the internet. But essentially these are just little sound effects, like 3 seconds, or like bloop, ding, bloop, you know, like stupid sound effects like that. And this clam jam, this is actually a song, so it's like 3 or 4 minutes long. And the reason that I wanted different lengths is because the way that you handle simple sound effects and the way that you handle music is a little bit different. Not only in your code, but logistically, if you just think about it, whenever you play a sound effect, like if you collect a coin in a game, it's just going to play, it's going to be done, you're going to hear it, simple as that. But with music in a song, you want the user to pretty much have more control over it. You can allow them to pause it, stop it, start over, and of course you don't want that control with just a simple sound effect. So again, that's why I'm going to show you guys 2 different techniques, and it's going to make sense in just a second. So another thing I should probably point out is this. I already implemented an input processor, and all of the methods just to, I didn't want this tutorial to last forever. So go ahead and do that, and also don't forget to register your input processor as this class. So right now, if I ran this program, it would just look like a white screen. So that's our starting point. And by the way, one other thing, I am adding all of the source code from this tutorial and all of my other tutorials on GitHub right now. So if you want this source code and, I don't know, maybe you just want to watch the video, like, alright, this is cool, and then I'll copy the source code later, go ahead, link below, you can get it there for free. Also, not only just for the tutorials, but if you're ever making an app and you're like, alright, you know what, I can use sound effects in here, you can just go back there and it's pretty much like a library for a bunch of different cool codes that you can add to your program. So I'm going to shut up now because I didn't even teach you guys anything yet, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is declare two objects. The first one is sound, and game over sound. Let me highlight that. So whenever you're using just a really simple quick sound effect, you can use a sound object. So that's what this is for. Anything longer than like 10 seconds, you probably want to use this one right here, music. Now again, this is for longer, pretty much songs and music that, let's say you're making a music player or something, you would want to use music instead. Why? Well, as you're going to see in a second, with music you can actually pause them, stop them, a bunch of good stuff. So again, sound for short, music for long songs like a music player. So once that is taken care of, what I need to do is just initialize them. So game over sound, and this is pretty much just saying where is the sound file. So audio new sound, and mine is at files.internal, and I put mine in a directory, remember, called sounds, and this was actually death2. I did not make that name up. Someone actually named it death2, and it does kind of sound like I don't know, like the user is dying or their game's over. So there you go. Now for the clam jam, which is my song, I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to gdx.audio. Now remember, whenever you actually have a music object, you need to call new music. So if I just copy that, you guys probably won't notice, but new sound and new music are two different methods to initialize your sound files differently. So gdx files dot, and this is all the same, internal, and my file was located in sounds. What was the name of that? I believe it was clamjam.wave. Hopefully. If not, we'll find out pretty soon, eh? Alright. Now another thing I want to point out is these sound files, both of them are disposable. So make sure that you dispose of these, especially, or else they're going to eat up all of your memory. So game over sound, dispose, and clamjam, dispose. Look at that, filled it in for me. Now what I'm going to do in this program is I'm just going to say whenever I tap down on the screen, I want this sound effect to start playing. So of course you would want to play this whenever they either like their character like hit a block or collected a coin, or for a music player you would want some buttons on here. But for now, since we just have a white screen, I can just put my finger on it and it'll start playing. So that is of course touchdown whenever I touch down on the screen. And let's do the simple game over. So this game over sound effect is that really quick one, and at first I'll just show you guys this to play it as normal. Now I'm not going to record my screen because A, I'm lazy, and B, if I showed you guys a demo, it's just going to be a white screen. You guys can't see my finger on the screen recorder. So let me just run this and hold on, got my cords all tangled up, and I'll show you guys what it does. Alright guys, so I had a typo. I actually put sound instead of sounds, so my program crashed, but it is running now. Now let me go ahead and tap my screen and listen. So that's, you can see actually right here whenever I'm tapping in my little lock hat. And now let me tap it real quick. So first of all, that's the most annoying sound ever, but that is my game sound file, and let me set my phone down here. So another thing I want to show you guys is this. See, whenever we just played the sound, we just called a method called play. It ran, played the sound fine. But what this method actually does is, in addition to just playing the sound, it also returns an ID number. And we can store this value, and we'll just store it in a long variable called like sound ID. Now, why would we ever want an ID number essentially to reference this sound? Well, with this ID number, what we can do is add some cool sound effects. And say that you're making this game and you had a bunch of different sound effects for your game. Maybe you had a sound where they collected coins, maybe you had one where they busted a block, and you had this one that played whenever it was the game over. But you notice that this sound was kind of loud, so what you want to do is go in here and somehow you got to figure out how to edit a sound file and turn down the volume. Or with a sound ID, you can actually do this all through Android. So if you reference game over sound and call something like set, as you can see there's a bunch of different stuff that you can do. So we'll just say set volume for now, and then you throw in your ID right there. The volume is actually a value 0 to 1. So if you want to set it at like 90%, just put 0.9 F. And let me show you guys one other thing. And just so you know, being able to differentiate between 90 and 100% is probably a little bit difficult, so I'll show you guys one that will be easy to hear. Set pitch, and this is actually a value 0 to 2. 1 is the default pitch that you heard just like a minute ago. So I'm just gonna go ahead and slow this down to like 50%. So if my pitch was at 50% talking, I would talk like this. So that's what pitch is. Pretty much the speed and, well, the pitch of it. So that's it. Now let me go ahead and play this little demo. Alright, so I got my phone. So you guys probably can't hear the volume being at 90%, but you can definitely hear the pitch. Alright, beautiful sounding sound effect. So now what I want to show you guys how to do is work. Actually, let me just go ahead and take all these out. And again, I'm going to include these whenever I post the source code on GitHub. So, yeah, alright. So another thing I want to do is show you guys how to use that streaming music. Now, of course, just to play it, it's pretty simple. You call the music file, and remember, this is my long music file. It's like 4 minutes long. Now, of course, I don't want to touch down. It plays for 4 minutes, and I have zero way of stopping it. So just for this example, I'm going to say whenever my finger is down on the screen, it's going to play. However, whenever I lift it up, then I'm going to pause it. So I'm going to call Clam Jam, which is the song, pause. Now, of course, you would never add the functionality to actual music player. You know, you don't want their finger to constantly be on the screen to play the song. But let me go ahead and show you guys. And by the way, well, I'll tell you guys in a second. Alright, so I'm about to tap my finger on the screen. And now lifting it off. Alright, so as you can see, whenever I lifted it off, then it pretty much stops it or pauses it right there. I'm going to press my finger down again. Lift it off. And that's another thing. See, this right here is the pause method. And what this does is wherever you paused it at, whenever I lift up my finger, it pretty much keeps an indicator of where it's at. Now, I can also call stop. And what this does is it actually stops it, and if I put my finger down again, it would start right at the beginning. So that's the difference from pause. It keeps your place. Stop would start right at the beginning. And I kind of like this song. I got it off well, I don't even know what the website's called, but check it out. Alright, so there you go. And, alright. Have to like adjust everything since I'm like grabbing my phone and then like trying to teach this and keep my screen recorder. It's a mess, so I'm gonna go ahead and probably go to McDonald's. They got them chicken selects now. Shout out to my selects. Alright. So yeah, there you go. Again, all this code is going to be on GitHub. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and well, see you guys later.